Depending on how how my yard work, my roof work is going today, and how disruptive it is, class may be abbreviated. You know, a lot of people on hammers walking around on top of us. So we'll see how that goes. But let me go ahead and answer the question of what precisely is due tomorrow. All right. So what precisely is due tomorrow? Well, if we go to modules, it's just this form. Nothing to worry about, which is this form, the proposal. What you do is that you download this form, this proposal.md, open it in any kind of text editor. You can even open it in idle, I bet. It's just a text file, notepad, text editor, whatever. Open it up. And there's 3 things to fill in. What ideas do you have? If you plan on collaborating with people, who are they? And do you have any questions? Okay. This is just simply based brainstorming. Now to turn it in, you'll note that there's not a Dropbox. Instead, you have to submit a website URL. And so you'll be linking to wherever you uploaded this on GitHub. So what you'll want to do is make a GitHub account, right? You'll want to make a GitHub account. Boop. Go to GitHub, right? Make your GitHub account, right? I'll go ahead and log out of this account. Sign into my Professor Rosen account. Okay. And then over here, just hit new, create a repository, and then get that file into your repository. Don't really care how you do it, so long as it's hosted on there. Okay. What will be due on the 13th is the actual proposal, which I've uploaded today. How bad is that knocking, by the way? I don't know how bad it is for you. How bad is the hammering? Please let me know. So let's see, so where is my chat window? Come on. Meh. Audible but bearable. Sounds like the place coming down. They're taking out off the entire roof. They're replacing all the plywood. All right. So your proposal is this. Notice over here, it's on the Choose Your Own Adventure CS edition for the tracks overview. So proposal, fill this out and upload it to your GitHub as well. So you click on this, and same thing. The proposal is a bit more fleshed out. So this is due on the 13th. What will likely be the title of your project? In just a sentence or two, summarize your project. A repository name is essentially the URL. So going back to answer a question, so over here, I host all my code I write here in my classroom repository. So github.com/my username account and then the repo name. That's what the repository name is. Very nice, Meet. All right, so the proposal. In sensor to summarize your project, e.g. like a website that lets you buy and sell stocks, in a paragraph or more, detail it. What will your software do? What features will it have? How will it be executed? I do plan on looking through them with the TA and telling the TAs to look through them. So yes, it will probably be something along the lines of, if there's no mention, it's probably okay. Not very in-depth. The proposal is not very in-depth. The proposal is in-depth. Make sense? The proposal is brainstorming. The proposal is actually putting stuff down that you plan on doing. Okay. So in a paragraph or more, detail it. What will your software do? What features will it have? How will it be executed? So here's a sentence summary. This is like a paragraph or two. Not too long. If you plan on combining the project with another course's final project, who is that? What is that? What and why? And how does that apply to your course? if you're applying with, if you're collaborating with other people, please let me know. And then here's the really interesting part. In the world of software, most everything takes longer to implement than you expect. So it's not uncommon to accomplish less in a fixed amount of time than you hope. In a sentence or list of features, right? For those of you watching gaming news, how many times has Cyberpunk been delayed now? Right? So in the sentence, define a good outcome for your final project. What will you accomplish no matter what? In a sentence, define, or at least the features, define a better outcome for your final project. What do you think you can do? Like, obviously this can get done, but I'm pretty sure I can get this done. And I mean, and in a perfect world, a best outcome. What do you hope to accomplish before the deadline? Which will be, yes, the module 11 and final are two different assignments, but the idea here is that you can take what you have from module 11 and build up from it. Okay. So everybody submits your own, even if it's identical. Everybody submits a proposal, even if it's identical. Okay. In a paragraph or more, outline what you're going to do next. What new skills will you need to acquire? What topics do you need to research? And if working on one or two classmates, who will do what? Okay. So that's really it. That's all you have to fill out for your final project. And then you go and code. Okay, now let's go ahead. So that's the proposal. So what I've got here is basically your first thing of your track due next week, and then the other part due right before the winter break. I'll probably make the final project due like as late as it possibly can, by the way. So like right before, like there's a point at which I'm no longer allowed to make you submit stuff because of final work. Because of final exams, but so at that point, but this is the idea. So let's go ahead and I'm going to go ahead and actually send a file in chat at the moment. Okay, so give me a moment. I'm going to upload a file in chat. So like I said, like I promised, I did work on a game for. I did work. Wait, is this the one? I hope it is. Yep, I did work on a game for everybody. There you go. That is my implementation of Pong, of the first part of it. So, and this is that. And what I wanted to show you was, what if I were going to take Pong and start making adjustments to it and to turn it into a final project? What would that look like? Okay. Remember, and the key here is, so go ahead. Where is it? It should be above you in chat. I just sent it to everybody in chat. Pong.love. So if you've got Love installed on your computer, you can run it. Otherwise, I'll share my screen. Would people prefer me to share my? But if you want to try it yourself, you can share. You can do it there. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen though, so that you can do that. Optimize sound, because this really does kind of need the sound, because I made the sound myself. All right, so this is Pong. If you haven't seen it yet, this is what the Pong game looks like. So, and if I was playing it, it would be in a window otherwise, but it's not in a window here. So enter to begin, and it's called, so this is what you need to do for the assignment, which was that on the right, you have this paddle moving up and down. What it's doing actually is that it's trying to track the ball. I'm not sure if the sound is coming. I don't hear any sound for it for some reason. Boo. That kind of makes it less hilarious. But anyway, so here, right, and notice that the paddle is doing its tracking. Now notice I called it unfair Pong, even though it seems like I'm winning pretty handily. Oops. So there we go. This guy's not really doing a good job. I think I'm just going to let this one go rather than torment us longer with this ball. Let's see how well he is able to get this one. So notice that basically all he does is just follow the trajectory of the ball like that. So here we go. Okay. And you'll notice that the game, maybe if you're keen-eyed, you might notice that the game is becoming slightly more in favor of him and he's starting to move faster. For instance, check out the size of the paddle. Now there's still some bugs. Notice that like I kind of curved it around myself. Normally it curves around me. So the guy is moving faster, and the computer's paddle is actually bigger than mine. It's actually been growing since I scored 3 points. By the game is to 10. So here we go, and boink. Okay, so this should get in, but now he's moving pretty darn fast. All right, and now's when it gets fun. So boom. Darn it. That's unfortunate. Why? I again, that bug still to fill out, to fix for that. Like that. So it sets a random velocity between 50 and negative 50, which I really should change, because that is just not effective for a velocity. But you notice the guy is like perfectly tracking it now. And not only that, he's pretty big. So what I did when I programmed this is that I made sure that I was using constants to program this. So say, so let's go. So you should all be able to see my screen now, right? So let's go and go over here to my drive, go to Pong, and let's take a look at it for instance, this function over here. So Lua, so this is made in Lua, and by the way, this is my first time programming in Lua. So, so it was there, and what I did is that, and this is what you get at the end. So let's see. So basically, the way the so let me go ahead and wrap these up so it doesn't look as intimidating. Okay. Update paddles, update ball. So a game is essentially a large infinite loop a lot of the time. So what we have here are basically four kind of buttons. Oh, wow, I hit it. How frustrating. All right, so I'm not, let's see, chat. No, I made this in Lua. So what I did, what I did here is that Lua has this, no, it's not frozen. So Lua is basically perfect for, I'm going to go ahead and close that. Let's see. And I will go ahead and run it again. So so the way this works is that we've got this 2D board over here. And basically all I'm doing, all the paddle is and all the ball is just simply a drawn rectangle. Its position is basically in each rectangle's top left corner. So, and then all we have is like a function that checks to see if things are colliding. So, let's see. So here we go. Now what I have it doing as well is I also have the, I have it so that the code, now this is actually really easy to make. I cannot emphasize how easy this was. So what I did is to make it grow, is that I basically had, if the right paddle was below a certain height and we were currently in the play mode, then all we did was increase the height by 0.01 times the player score. So the more the player scores, the faster it will go to that maximum height. And then all I did was compare the ball to the paddle, okay? And basically said, hey, where is it? And then move it to there. So here we go. So the more I score, the bigger it's going to grow. Sorry, the faster it's going to grow and the bigger it's going to get. Okay. So until it becomes completely unfair for me. Notice that he starts growing noticeably now. Okay, boom, boom. And we're in there. And so now at this speed, I found this particular speed, it's basically he will lock onto the ball. And now, notice what's happening. Boom. Like I said, unfair. Right now, what I've done is that basically once you're at 8 points, whenever he hits the ball, he essentially spikes it and the speed of the ball will double. So, and again, once he gets to 10 points, it wins, or either person wins. Now, when I did that, I don't know if you all heard the like slamming sound effect. Did you? When he hit the ball? Right. So part of what I did there was, let's see. So I'm going to show you what happens if it gets in, right? At that speed. So I'll let this one go because again, it's one of the serves that was slow. So I think about ways to make this game more hilarious because Pong is a pretty straightforward game. Now, what I would do would basically make, if I was making this game, trying to make this game funny, I'd be basically, and trying to make it more interesting, I'd start like, and make it a final project, maybe I would add like a Space Invaders element where he starts summoning guys who are now going to shoot at my paddle. And if I get shot by then I will, I get stunned. I can't move my paddle for a bit, for like a second or so. Okay, I think what's reasonable for given the amount of time we have is to build a game is to remix a classic game like Donkey Kong, Pong, Space Invaders, Mario, something simple, something with simple rules, nothing too intricate. That would be the easiest approach. If you wanted to do something intricate, I highly suggest making a text-based adventure game. Like one student has already proposed doing that. And I was going to mention that as an idea earlier, but doing like a text-based game like Zork or that would be fine. Could you make a dating sim? There's a Python library specifically for that. So long as it's basically appropriate for school, sure. As I mentioned, Doki Doki Literature Club is one of my favorite games, but you know. So let's go ahead and take a look at the loops for the way it works in Lua. So the first thing this does is that, as he'll go over, there's basically a function called load, which basically this sets up all the stuff for the game. This is all the initialization. All the sounds are in here, where basically I create a dictionary of all these sounds, which by the way I made those. So, those were all stuff that I put that basically I loaded them in, and when certain things happen, I just simply play them. And then finally, so the other loops are the update and draw. So update basically updates the internal logic of the game. Basically, so like update paddles. If the WP is being pressed, then we move the paddle in the up direction. Otherwise, if S is pressed, move it in the down. So W to go up, S to go down. Otherwise, leave it. Otherwise, his speed is 0. And then if the game state is in play, then the PC is going to keep trying to do it. So update, and then I say update 1 or update 2. I mentioned that this game is an unfair game of Pong. I didn't mention who was unfair for. I will be available during the fall break, sure. But this game is unfair for the computer because, let me go ahead and show you. I did not disable the code that controls the other paddle. So the update ball basically updates checks for collision, and the colon is just think of that as dot for objects. It stopped. Well, give it a second. It will probably start again. key press just simply checks that the key has been pressed once, like hitting escape to quit. So anyway, we had the update, which updates the internal state of the game, and draw just simply says, here, can you please draw what's on the board? And it will, and it's pretty useful. So, I mean, so basically you do those three functions. We make other files. I'm not going to go into them because the videos do go into a good job of that. So let's go ahead and take a look at other games that, some games that have been made with this engine. All right. So first one, so if you check on their wiki, there's honestly some, there's some stuff over here which kind of look, you know, pretty low production value if I'm going to be honest. But if we check on, there's a list of games that have been published on Steam that have been made in this. And if you check itch.io, there's a lot of games that you can try and play that have been made and love. One of my personal favorites are is this game over here. Games that are simple are often the best. So let's go ahead. Let's go to my drive because I had this one's called Oh My Giraffe. It's a really fun game. Music is really catchy too. Notice it's been sent as an exe, but this one here, I've got a giraffe, and I've used my mouse movement to control his mouth, and he basically eats these fruits. And then it got lions who chase me. And what I have to do in order to avoid getting eaten by lions is that I have to drop the fruit behind me by snipping it rather than eating it. But I can't snip them all because otherwise I'll get hungry. Ah! So, is this an excuse just for me to play video games in class? Possibly. No, I did not make this. This is somebody else's game that I thought was really awesome. But this is a kind of game, but basically anything that is made that's a kind of 2D game makes it easy. Oh, there I got it. So this is fun. And notice the style it's drawn in is what we call a retro style. Give me a second. I've got a laser. Yes? It's pretty hectic out there. All right, so notice that this game is made in the retro style. Right now, retro style games are basically what's in for the genre. Games like this one's particularly really well. Shovel Knight. That one is particularly well regarded. It is a retro 2D style game. Let's see. But let's just take a look at the graphics and the animation over here. Right? Made with so basically 2D style sprites. This is very much the kind of thing you would expect to see on an NES. In fact, the music that I'll put on for a second is I think something that was NES style. But this is like a big place. That's like a big area to play games or to make games right now. So if you want to take something and make it more interesting, then getting these kind of games would be moving towards this kind towards a retro style game is probably the best way to take something beyond the steps of this course. So there are, I mean, so there are a bunch of stuff. Let's see. And yet it hurts. And yet it hurt, I think. Yeah, this one was very interesting because this one was I found over here, downloadable game for window. It was on itch as well. Notice what it is. Let's see. More information. Status relieved. Made with Love. So this was made with Love 2D. Average session about an hour. So let's take a look at this one. About what it is. Clicking on the new game window. And it hurt.exe and it opens up Notepad. Drag it in. And what he did here was he made not Notepad, because Notepad won't do what you want, but instead what he did is that he made essentially an application that looks like Notepad, that responds like Notepad, so it makes it seem like you are playing a game in Notepad. So it is a very interesting kind of, so it's just a very well done game. By the way, doing this game apparently took him like, I don't know, I don't think it was 3 years of active development, but like just like 3 years of just on and off development, like hobby-like. So it's very, so again, these games that even look like they could be simple like this are really tricky. But it's the oh, I'm sorry. Okay, so this game was made in Love. It was done by I can't hear the music. So so what we've got here is basically a game that basically mimics Notepad. It didn't actually make Notepad. He or rather didn't actually use Notepad on the computer. He made a Notepad-like application, and basically that made the interface look a whole lot like Notepad. And so it made it seem like it was just simply modifying files and changing files and stuff like that to work on that. So this was like it's a really interesting kind of concept, which I find amazing. Now, so what kind of games would be, I think, appropriate for targeting for a final product? Some of the more old classic arcade games. Cloning Space Invaders and then adding some kind of twist onto it would be there. Now, for those of you who aren't familiar, this is Space Invaders. Not the most exciting looking graphics. Basically, you have aliens that come down from the screen, and you've got this little turret over here. The aliens occasionally shoot at you, and you've got these like domes over here. The domes will block the shots if you're underneath them, but they'll also block your shots. And as you shoot at these domes, as they shoot, they'll wear away at them somewhat, and you can wear away at them somewhat. But so they can both impede you and it, but they're both destructible by you. And as the aliens get further and further down, they move slowly across the screen. They basically all move in formation. They all move to the left, then they go down. Sorry, they all move to the right, then they go down a bit, and then they all go to the left. And then then it keeps getting faster and faster and faster and faster. Galaga is another game like that, but Space Invaders is fairly well known as a game. Remixing it would be pretty awesome. It was the highest grossing video game of all time, adjusted for inflation. its music was very, very simple. All it is a it is a 4-note bass line that is just simply faster and faster and faster and faster. So music does not need to be complicated at all if you want to try to do music. How do you get music, by the way? Look for royalty-free or open source or Creative Commons sounds if you want to use it. So, and I might have to do a separate lecture on copyright to help you with this, but basically taking a game like this, remixing it for educational purposes is perfectly within fair use, especially when you're putting your own twist on it. Right? So you might decide to change the sprites a bit, change the theme, make it so that the enemies are a bit more complicated, like in Galaga. Galaga is another good game. Lost many a quarter to that game. It is another similar game where basically you've got these guys, they fly in and then they get into formation. These guys can steal your ship, which is annoying, but then you can shoot them and then you can rescue that ship and then you get 2 ships at once, but it makes you twice as big. So it makes it a bit harder to deal with, right? So that's a fun game. Another classic game that has been remade by Nintendo a couple times is, of course, Donkey Kong, which I have no idea why they got that name like that, but it is, let's see, the original Donkey Kong game is basically got a very weirdly drawn Mario in it. That's, how do they do infinite scrolling games? So procedural generation is a big thing. And I think the Mario lecture talks about procedural generation. Yeah, almost Waluigi. So this kind of game, but basically all it is just simply, you have this very poorly controlled Mario. He jumps over barrels and tries to go up. You can also climb up the ladders, but the barrels might or might not come down the ladder. So that makes it tricky. So that you're faced with the choice of trying to jump over these ladders or trying to go jump over the barrels or climb up the ladders. Also, to make sure that you keep progressing, as you can see, there's this little flame sprite over here. As they hit this barrel, they sometimes generate these flames that come after you. The hammer that you can pick up here and in another location allows you to smash these barrels. And essentially, this has 4 stages, that you play through until you get to the end of the 4th stage. So it is a fairly straightforward game. Part of what made it difficult is that the controls were not smooth. One of the big things that you could not do in this game is that once you jumped, your momentum was basically set, like in real life. You cannot change direction while you are jumping in real life, but you can in a lot of video games, right? So you don't really get freedom of movement in the air like you do in Super Smash Brothers. Once you jump, you're basically just gotta hope you jumped correctly because there's no adjusting that. That's part of what made it difficult, but that is kind of one of those difficulties. So let's go ahead and, so Donkey Kong is one of those games. Breakout is one game. If you're particularly attracted to Pong, you might decide to try Breakout instead. So notice that the graphics are not much more involved than Pong. You've got yourself a bunch of bricks and a paddle. And what you do is that basically pretend like you've got a ball comes down, hits, you smack it with the paddle and hit a brick and the brick disappears. And the way it works, and what's cool is that when you get it through, once you get it through, you can have it ricochet off the top bricks in the ceiling, which is pretty awesome, and knock out a whole bunch of bricks at once. So it's I really enjoyed Breakout. It was a great game on my Game Boy. I loved it. It is, as you can see, not too much more complicated than Pong. Ball speed increases at specific intervals. After 4 hits, after 12 hits, and after hitting the red and orange rows. The paddle shrinks to 1/2 its size after the ball has broken through the red row and hit the upper wall. So basically, so it is a lot of fun, but as you can see, it's not too much more complicated. Now, another kind of game, if you're doing like the web track or the iOS track or any other kind of track, one kind of game, let's see, I'm trying to, paper clips in, yeah, paper clips game. Let's see, what is it? Really? So one kind of game that I enjoy a bit is clicker games. This is a game where you play as an AI that's job is to make paper clips. You make paper clips and you sell them. And it kind of gets a bit existential, but basically this kind of game where you play and you just click a button until you until clicking a button gives you once you do this, right, we are selling paper clips to make money over here, and in a bit we should be able to get the here an auto clipper costs $5. Now I can buy this and now it will clip paper clips for me automatically, and eventually, and since you're playing an AI, various features will unlock in this web page. You notice that the graphics aren't much. Now, why do I like this game? Because it gets kind of existential. So check it out if you've got the time. It takes about 6 hours for playthrough. Yes, for a game like this, the kind of game you can walk away from. The game is split up into 3 stages. So it ends up being very, very interesting. But clicker games, which exploit exponential growth and those kind of things, are also very interesting games that you can do. So, all right. So, questions so far? Let's see. So in that case, I'm going to talk about I'm going to go back to my Pong code and talk about one of the things. Now, you'll notice that what I've given you in Pong, here, let me close this for a second. I don't have to optimize for video anymore. And I don't have to share sound. Okay, so notice that this file says it's pong.love. Let's go ahead and I will view it, increase to large icons. So here I've got this pong.love. Okay, have to clean up my desktop. It's gotten a bit messy. So we have so actually what this love file is actually just a zip file with the extension name changed. Here, I'll show you. Rename it from pong.love, pong.zip, and boom, there. And now it thinks it's a zip file, which it originally was, and now I can open it, and here's all the code for it. Pretty cool. Extract all, remove it in Pong, place all these things. So that's all. So that's the easiest way to distribute to somebody who has love. So let's go ahead and take a look through this. I will go ahead first, and I'm going to take my folder and drag it onto here so that I can see all the files. So all the files are I don't know why I have a test.java file in there. So anyway, we've got ourselves a main, paddle, ball. Those are all the classes I wrote. There's also two more, or all the files I wrote. There's also two files here called class and push. Class simplifies writing these two things, and push simplifies a lot of the drawing stuff that we do. So we don't have to deal with it. But you'll notice that basically we've got this thing called a paddle in a class, and it's a class. Paddle equals class. So class is one of those features that you're going to learn about here and in more detail next semester, called object-oriented programming. And the idea behind object-oriented programming is that we can combine something to, we can create a new data type. So we've been able to, in Python, create things for a while. So let's actually do this in Python for a bit. So I'm going to create this in Python. Doesn't really matter. So yeah, I'm going to go ahead and just close this. Let me show you how it works in Python for a bit, because object-oriented programming, knowing how to do that in Python probably is going to be pretty cool. So I'll just move to the desktop. Okay. OOP.py. Okay. So what is an object? So the idea here is that we can have some kind of new data type. We've been creating new verbs in our language for a while. So for instance, we've got def count, which might take in some kind of list, and a num, and count all the times that num appears in the list. That's a new verb added to our programming language. Okay. Now, one of the paradigms that we use is object-oriented programming, which is the idea that we should define new nouns and organize our program by these nouns, by these actors in our program, and how they interact with each other. So for instance, in this class, I have there's two types of actors, right? There's two paddles, right? We have a paddle. So we have a paddle type, a new paddle noun, and a ball, which just bounces and stuff, you know? Makes sense? There's two new types that I've added. So in Python, we might make basically, well, let's go ahead and see how a paddle would look in Python. So to declare a new type in Python, we simply say, hey, let's go ahead and create a class. Okay. So a class is basically the blueprint for making what's called an object. So you use this blueprint to construct new objects. So class paddle. And I think this is how we do it in Python. And then we can say object. Now let's go ahead and see if I've done this correctly. Paddle. This should do like absolutely nothing at this point. Awesome. It doesn't crash. That's fine. So this is how we declare a new type. Now, when we declare a new type, we declare what's inside of it. Okay. So the first thing we need to declare is something called a constructor, which tells Python or any programming language how we want to build it. In Python, it looks like this. It looks like creating a special function inside this class. Def underscore underscore init underscore underscore. Wait, what? What? Yeah, it looks kind of weird, don't it? Okay, but init is basically using these underscores. It does two things. It's a special keyword, first off. Basically, the underscores indicate two things. First, it's special. Python immediately knows what it is and does special things to it. And second of all, it is it's not really accessible. I can't call init like this. Let's see. Or I can't really call it like that. Oh, right. guess I can in that one. Outside of this file, I don't think I can. But anyway, let's go ahead and compare that to how that looks in here. Init. So let's take a look at how it looks in Lua. It goes paddle is equal to this class. And then functions like this, rather than starting with def, they start with function. And we know a function is over when we hit end. It's not like in Python where we have to care about white space. So self.x is equal to x, self.y is equal to y. What is all this self and what is this? So part of this is that basically we are creating a blueprint for a paddle. And so this is saying, hey, the initialization constructor, all right, it takes in 4 variables. A paddle has an x and y position, and it has a width and a height, right? And let's go ahead and rename this to a love file so that we can see that in action. Right? Paddles, they have an X and Y position on my screen, and then they are so big, and then they're so big and so wide. Okay. And they also have a speed, which is how we know where the dy, which is their change in their Y position, which is how we know how they're moving. So the way it would look in Python is like this: take in an X position, a Y position. To build this, we need an X position, a Y position, and a width and a height. So, and we'd also need the self. Self is just the word, is basically in Python, we're asking what word are you going to use to refer to yourself? What word is a paddle going to use to refer to itself? And self, so here what we say is that paddles will hold their own variable. Let's see, I think I might be getting messages. Hold on. Yep. Which class? In Lua, this is the way it's done with using the class file, the special class file. In here, I think this is the way we do it. We'll find out very shortly. Self.x, because I don't use object-oriented programming stuff paradigms in Python too much. I do that in Java a lot because Java is innately made to be an object-oriented language. Whereas Python, you can, yeah, it's object-oriented, but you can do, you don't have to. So setting it up, as you notice, is just a matter of like mapping these variables to each other, creating a variable called self.width and saying, okay, and then creating a variable called self.height. So when we create a paddle, what are we saying? We are saying that this paddle has an X position, a Y position. This X position is going to be stored in a variable called X. It's going to be stored in position. The Y is going to be stored in self.y, and the width is going to be stored in self.width, and self.height is going to be stored, or height is going to be stored in self.height. So there we go for that. And now what we can do here is we can create a paddle. Let's go ahead and now give it the 4 positional arguments it needs. So this is the weird quirk with Python that I don't like it, why it's when it's taught in intro classes for object-oriented programming and why we use Java, is that basically you have to, here you have 5 variables, but you provide 4 over here. So let's go ahead and say it's going to be located at 0, 0. It's going to be 5 pixels wide and 20 pixels high. Okay. And now compiles and works. And now let's go ahead and say, okay, so now let's see what happens. Print P does nothing. Let me go ahead and up and increase the size of the font in the terminal settings. You want to watch something else, Laser? I'm sure, but I'm working with my class right now. More than one way. Okay, so when we printed this out, it printed out basically saying, hey, you created a paddle object at 0x0114b160. What is that? What's 0x0114b160? The memory address. What's the formatting of the number? What's the whole ox thing that's going on here? Right, ox. If it starts with 0x, this is a way in a lot of programming languages to tell us that we're looking at a number in base 16 or hexadecimal. That means instead of using the digits from 0 to 9, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, the digits now go through these values. They now go through, they now do these values, which are 0, 1. So you've got your decimal values 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. But in hexadecimal, you've got the same 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and so on and so forth until we get to 10. After 10, we represent it with A. 11 gets represented by B, C, D, E, F. And those are the values. They can be multi-digit, such as the one above there. So for instance, FF actually this is base 16. It translates to 255. Because so these values are, and now how do we get that? Well, how do we translate a number from hexadecimal to a decimal value? Well, it works the same way it does in base 10, which is that basically this is, if we have a number in base 10, right, 136, that's equivalent to saying that is 100 plus 30 plus 6, right? Right? That's what we're saying when we have 136, right? Okay. And that's equivalent to us saying it's 10, it's 1 times 10 squared plus 3 times 10 to the first power plus 6 times 10 to the 0th power, right? This is what it means by base 10. We've got a 1 that's multiplied by 10 to the second power, a 3 that's multiplied by 10 to the first power, 6 multiplied by 10 to the 0th power. Now it works the same way over here. If I were to do, let's say, 1A in hexadecimal, that is equal to, actually we have no idea what it equals like this, but we would know that it's 1 times, since it's base 16, 1 times 16 to the first power plus A. What is A? A times 16 to the 0th power. 0th power is just 1, right? Now what is A? A is 10. So 10 times 1, really easy math there. And then it's 1 plus 16 over here. Or sorry, 1 times 16 over here, because 16 to the first power is 16. So it's 16 plus 10, or 26. That's how, so 1A is 26. So that's how you calculate base, these kind of base notations. Do you ever need to? No, not really. But that's how it works. And I figure I might as well mention that in intro class. So anyway, when we print it, it gives us the memory address and all this stuff over here. Completely useless information. But we can print out some more useful things, like we could do, watch this, p.x. And it prints out 0. So now if I set the x coordinate saying, hey, this is located at x coordinate 10, y coordinate 0, if I print out p.x, it says 10. more importantly, I can do something like this. I can have this paddle, okay, and I can have paddle 1. Actually, let's just call it P1 for paddle 1. And I can also have a P2 at a completely different location. Let's say, 300 and then 0. So all the way across the screen, maybe. Just as big. Call it P2. And we can print out its all these aspects, print P, or all these variables. P1.y, P2. By the way, object-oriented programming won't be on the final exam. Again, I'm hoping to try to get that toned down a bit. So P2 dot x, P2 dot y. But this is something that's going to be, that gets introduced in, I think, a lot of the modules you have. Oh, P1, because P2 doesn't exist yet. With, assuming I can spell with. God, that banging is really frustrating. That's part of why I haven't bothered trying to come up with a lesson plan for today. I'm like, yeah, there's no point. It's just going to get interrupted by incessant knocking. How's it look, Annie, by the way?
It's going. I'm just pointing out things as I see them.
You have a lot of issues, huh?
Well, they have things, the events for the bottom. And so the full pieces have an edge on either side. And of course, it's not going to measure up depending on the length of the house. It's completely arbitrary as to if the length is the right for the house or not. So you get to the end, and they cut off the end rather than cutting off the part that's going against what was already there. So it was open on the end. So they got to fix that.
All right. I'm glad that you're supervising.
I am trying to.
Because that's something to bring up with the company, you know?
Yeah.
They told us they were good. All right. So what we have here is we've got a, so if you haven't noticed from this running, we've got P1, P1, P1. Basically, we print out all the aspects of P1. We print out all the aspects of P2. So we have these variables over here that that are each accessible and they're each independent, right? This P1, paddle 1's x is different than paddle 2's x. Paddle 2's y is different than paddle 1's y. So basically each object acts as a collection of variables, which is first and foremost very important. But more importantly, we can have them have functions. Like we can create more functions in them inside of them to do things. So for instance, we can say, we can make this a bit easier for us and say print attributes self to say, this is how I'm referring to this particular paddle. And what we can do is just simply, I'll just simply take this and do, and yeah, this is not the Pythonic way to do that. I'll show you the best way to do that in a bit. But basically I say, hey, print out my X, my Y, my width, and my height. And now all I have to do that is now I call this method, as it's called. That's what we call functions inside objects, methods. Print out, do print attributes, call it P2 dot print attributes. So these new types have things coming up. All right, 10 and 300. So the so notice I've created a function that they can both use. That still doesn't fix the whole printing out thing, to which I'll get to, I think, before class. Now, in Lua, these methods, they instead of using dots, they use colons here. That's really the only difference. But here, this makes it very easy to do these things. So over here, in the update paddles, I basically changed the paddle attributes over here. So instead of having like a bunch of variables at the top and trying to remember which one is which, it's a lot easier for me to handle. And then to update their internal state, I just tell them to update their internal state, and that calls this function inside here, rather than having to deal with that over there. I keep worrying that my kid is like knocked something over. So that's why I've been kind of frenetic today. So the same thing goes with the ball. It is very, very, very simple, this kind of paradigm, but it's very powerful. All right. Now with regard, so that's pretty much all I have for today. Are there any questions about this? About
Where do the wires attach? Where do the wires attach for the fan?
Okay, I was worried I wasn't screen sharing for a bit and you guys weren't telling me. So, all right. So, is there any other questions for the day? Hopefully, I've given you some ideas about the various ways you can take games if you're going to do the gaming track, which again, I highly recommend, even though it looks like it's learning a new language. Lua is not that hard. And yeah, you jump right into it, but you realize that a lot of the structures you use are pretty powerful. Oh, and let me just double check. Did I write even a single loop when I was writing this code? Because most of the looping was already done. I don't think I wrote a single loop inside. Yeah, I just wrote if-else statements. The loops were already running internally, so I didn't have to write a single loop to do this. About the idea. What website did I show last Tuesday? Writing a program in a device. It's not ringing a bell, unfortunately. Tuesday was like 10 years ago.
It had something to do with the laser thing, but like I wanted to look at it so I can know which device that they use.
Oh. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So that was on Raspberry Pi. That was on the Raspberry Pi website. So Raspberry Pi laser tripwire. Yeah, it was this. A Raspberry Pi laser tripwire. So that's what it was. A Raspberry Pi being a very small kind of thing. It uses the Pi game module, oddly enough, to play sound. And Katrina, you are welcome to ask the class if you're ask me if you're comfortable with hear the rest of the class hearing.
Sure. So one of the ideas that I had, and I've been kind of looking into it a little bit, but I'm super new to programming. Like this is the first class I took, so I don't know whether it's actually a thing that like I could do given what I know and how much time we have. If that
Right. That's always tough to know.
Yeah, like I don't know what I don't know. So, you know.
Mm-hmm.
But I wanted to do something where like if I scan a barcode, like one thing I want to do is like make a barcode reader kind of, but then like my next step is like I wanted to be able to like find the ingredients list and like check for certain ingredients, if that makes sense. Like my big idea, which I don't think I'd be able to accomplish because it's like too much, is like I want to do something like an app that like if you scan a barcode, you can tell like whether the ingredients of a food are vegan.
So reverse looking up an ingredient, reverse looking up a barcode would be, I think, perfectly acceptable. And I think it's doable, because I think there's libraries that do the hard work for you given a picture.
Is that something that I could like do in Python, or is that something I'd have to learn another language for?
You probably have the scanning part would probably have to be done in like in the mobile field or something. But if given a picture, you could probably do it in Python. Possibly. There's probably a Python library for it. Like look up like a Python barcode scanner library. So let's see. Python barcode. Yeah, Python barcode scanner library. So there's a couple of there's a couple of different ones, and I think there's possibly that's something to take a look at. That's why
There was one website it's called thepythoncode.com, and it has an article. It says like how to make a barcode reader in Python. And I was kind of like,
using opencv.python. Yeah, there's a number of tutorials I've seen using it. So it does seem like there's a library for it.
cool.
Okay, so Vivek, for tomorrow's assignment, are you referring to the pre-posal?
Yeah.
So for the pre-posal, you are just doing a brainstorm of ideas. You don't have to commit to anything, but if you have specific questions about what you want to try to do for your assignment, then that's where you submit them. If you have
No, I was more confused on like how to turn it in, because like I clicked that link and it didn't open, and I don't know if I did something wrong.
which link? The README file?
Yeah,
So I mean,
it didn't open at all. So I was confused on how to open it.
oh, did you download the file though?
Yeah, I did, and then I
You
tried
need to open
it.
it in a text editor. Are you what
I run Mac OS.
okay,
Mac, yeah.
give me 1 second. I'm just looking. So, Mac OS built in editor. What is the
Well, I
built-in-
think
text edit?
me-
Open it in text edit. All right.
Yeah, let me. Yeah, so you said text edit? Is that what
Yeah,
you said?
text edit. You can open it in text edit.
Okay, thank you. And then once I open that, what do I do? Sorry, you just put it in there and turn it.
Fill in the stuff that says to do.
Got it. Okay, thank you.
That's it. The other thing you can do is you can upload that file to the GitHub repository and edit it directly on GitHub.
Oh yeah, and then I already made my account. Do I have to like put that in too, like the link to it or something?
Yes, you're submitting a link because there's
Okay.
no Dropbox. All you have is a link to your repository.
So I submit the assignment and then a link on top of that, or
No,
in the
no, no.
assignment?
All you submit is the link.
Oh, so I don't have to.
Right. So here, let me go ahead and switch into share. Boom, boom. Should be sharing my screen now, right? Here. So let's go and click here onto our thing. I'm going to hit student view. Modules. Go to the pre-posal over here. Hit submit assignment over here. And all it gives you is a web paste link.
Oh, okay, okay. So and then what about? I'm just confused. Then what's the proposal is just for ourselves? Like the download.
Uh-huh. You put it. You. I'm not really sure what the question is. You just put in you link to the proposal on GitHub. The proposal on GitHub.
I think.
Oh,
that-
so I upload the file after I fill it out to GitHub and then put the link in.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. I got it. I was just a little
Now-
confused on that.
Now, how do you open it? Somebody says, how do you open it on PC? Either download VS Code, or you can open it with Notepad. And it'll open up perfectly well in Notepad because it's a plain text file. Notepad plus is also good. So there is that. Okay. Other questions? All right, this week is supposed to be, the work on it is supposed to be pretty non-stressful, but I would get started on the Pong app. It gets you pretty far. It gives you a lot of the code. The Mario code, for instance, gets you. So here they give us, let's me open up the Mario code here just to show you before class is done. They give you quite a bit of stuff in the Mario that you build up. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to drag this into code. I'm going to drag that folder into here so that I can open it. And then so over here, we've got our main file. And if we run it, which I think is Alt L, here we go. This is what we get. You get basically this kind of thing. It's got scrolling. It generates it generates the level randomly, procedurally, but only a bit of it. So, Alt L. So here I'm running it again, and you notice that the level
Don't touch me, laser. Don't touch me.
is
I'm very
very
active
different.
today.
And you've got our blocks. We can hit the block and it changes. And we don't have a death function yet. So if I fall in, so this game is a bit more incomplete, but the physics behind it, this is what you build up to for Mario. No. Felipe, no. Pong and you just do one of the tracks. So, right. So since one person asked, that means at least 5 other people I need to clarify this for, okay? Okay. So give me 1 second. Okay, good. I am still sharing my screen. So, modules, right? Tracks overview. So each track is about 2 weeks. I don't explicitly say you need to choose one. So let me go ahead and so there we go. Okay, because I've mentioned it in class, but I guess I didn't spell it out here, so that's important. So you choose one. So, and you'll submit one and be excused from the other ones. So as long as you submit 2, so long as you submit 2 of these, you'll be fine. The mobile has a bit more to it. But these are what you want to submit. Okay. Now, as far as when the final project is going to be due, let's see. So we have Thanksgiving break. Let's see. Unless I can't make it due any later, I think the latest I can make it due is December 7th. So a month from now. I think. I'm going to make sure I'm going to try to turn it in as late as possible. Okay? Make sense?
Yep. So, Professor, we gotta do if we pick game, we gotta do both of the assignments, right?
Yeah. If you do pick games, you do the Pong assignment and the Mario assignment. If you pick mobile, there's Pokédex. You've got 3 assignments, and they're going to be linked over here. You can find them over here with these video lectures. And if you do web, you do the respective web track. The mobile track is they say has a bit more of a steeper learning curve. But if you're comfortable with Java already, then or then that, or you really want to get into iOS programming, then that would be the way to go. Games are just fun. It can be really fun to to play something that you built, to basically play something and have a new toy to play with. It's really fun. And doing web programming is just plain useful in general for everybody. So you choose one of those, but you'll most likely need to demo these. Yes. All right. So I think with that, I'm going to go ahead and dismiss class. All right. If you've got any